I remember when I went to Sam Houston State University to do my internship. And I didn't know anyone there. I had never been to Texas, but I showed up a couple weeks before the fall semester started and started to get to know some people. And very quickly was charged with saying, hey, there's the university, go build a small group. And so I began to connect with students on the university, just university events and dorm move-ins and things like that. And I started fighting for these connections that I had made. And one of the ways I realized I needed to fight for them was by inviting them into the larger community that I was a part of. And even though I didn't know that many people, I had really done my best to get to know as many as I could and remember their names. And as soon as I would bring around a connection that I had made with someone on the university, I was bringing them around the larger community, and I was trying to get these guys I was fighting for to meet the larger community. And so whenever I was in a room, before or after an event, or whenever we were just having a hangout or something like that, my primary concern was to make sure that these guys were connecting the whole time. And honestly, I could say that year I saw guys really buy into my small group much more strongly, much more quickly than I had ever seen before. And I think a big part of that was because I wanted them to feel like if they were going to hang out with me, that I was going to help them to get to know people and to meet lots of people. And so I was constantly trying to do that. I was helping them in their conversations, just like the awkward freshman, like I don't know how to have a conversation with the senior, but hey, you played football in high school, right? Like, hey, this guy is leading a IM team this year, and maybe you guys could talk about that, right? I was always trying to help them, making sure that they were engaging and being engaged. It only takes maybe 30 seconds being in a room where you're not feeling like you're being engaged before you're looking for the door. And so even if I wasn't in a conversation with one of my guys, I always had like half of my brain was working on making sure that they were doing okay, that they weren't disengaging. And when I was in the circle with them, I was constantly making sure that they were able to talk and that they weren't being ignored in the circle, but that they were front and center of who was talking and what was going on, because I wanted them to feel like they belong. It was more than just saying like, hey, it'd be, Nate's cool because he'll help us meet lots of people, but that the idea in community is if the only community identity you're working from is the small group, these 3, 4, 5 people that you have in your group, then there's a very small, as intimate and as interconnected as life on life as you can be in that small group community. You're going to have a harder time, not an easier time, you're going to have a harder time creating buy-in into that group unless they feel like there's also a larger community that they can be a part of. But if they feel like there's this larger community identity that they're being invited into, and the way to do that is by connecting in this tighter knit group that are learning to do life together and faith in their life, then you'll actually create more buy-in as a result. And so me emphasizing the larger community quickly actually helped. But more than that, actually, I think the thing that I have learned over the years is most valuable is that they say that any group that gets together, the culture of that group is forged really at the beginning. It's the first thing is like, how do we operate? How do we behave? What are the habits and the culture of our community? And when my guys that I was fighting for to become part of my small group were invited into the larger community, a community that already had convictions, my guys were picking up on it. They were picking up on how my guys were watching this larger community honor each other and talk about the Lord on a regular basis, and talk about what they were reading, and talking about just how much they appreciate this character trait about so-and-so, or that character trait about, and through experiencing the honor and the love and the convictions for God in their lives, my guys were beginning to learn how they were supposed to operate, how they should live as a small group community. The community, the culture that we created in our community at the small group level came from them engaging in that larger community. In fact, I was just talking with a small group leader just this last year, and she was talking about how when her girls went to a birthday party, and the same thing, they were invited to a birthday party from some people, somebody in the ministry here at CSU Chi Alpha, and they got to see the larger community just love on this girl and honor her and celebrate her. And that really set the tone, she said, for how they learned how they needed to behave and how they needed to learn how to express love to other people in their own small group as a result. Of course, lastly, we also just, we see probably more people come to the Lord and make major decision moments in their faith. It's because the small group leader is bringing them into the larger community, that they're there to have those moments. And it's the relationship of the small group community after those decision moments that really walk with them as they make those decisions. So that's not to say that you can't or shouldn't give them decision moments. You should. But oftentimes that larger community moment it creates a sense of momentum in their lives, in their hearts. They go to a retreat and they come back and all right, let's do this. So often we aren't competing, that larger community identity and that small group community. We're complementing each other. It's not either emphasize this larger community or my small group. It's they're going to buy into your small group through connecting with that larger community. And so as you are building a small group, beginning to fight for guys or gals, don't invite them into the larger community after you've created buy-in into the small group. Do it at the beginning. Do it early on. It's through that they're more likely to commit, and that in their commitments you're going to create the culture of the community that you're trying to develop as a result. So below you can see some resources on just tips and suggestions on how to go about that. But remember, use the larger community as you begin to fight for people to become part of your small group.